All right, let's talk about something that pretty much everyone goes through, but nobody really wants to admit it. I'm talking about those bizarre, totally unwanted, and sometimes kind of shocking thoughts that just pop into your head from out of nowhere. So picture this. You're standing somewhere high up, maybe a balcony or the edge of a cliff, and for just a split second, this weird little voice in your head goes, "What if I jumped?" Not because you want to, not at all, but the thought just shows up. Sound familiar? Well, if you've been there, you are definitely not alone. You're actually in the majority. Seriously. Studies show that more than half of us, even people with absolutely no history of suicidal thoughts, have had that exact feeling. It even has a name, the high place phenomenon. So, what's up with that? Why do our brains serve up these strange, totally unwelcome ideas? That's exactly what we're going to dive into. That weird urge to jump is the perfect place to start. Some researchers think it's basically a misfire, a misinterpretation of a safety signal. Your brain is screaming, "Get back, danger," so loudly that your conscious mind kind of gets its wires crossed and hears jump. It's a fascinating and, yeah, a pretty strange quirk of our survival instincts. But look, the high place phenomenon is just one tiny example. These kinds of thoughts are part of a much bigger category. So let's get on the same page and define what we're actually talking about here. Okay, the two words to really focus on here are unwelcome and involuntary. These aren't your thoughts, not in the sense that you cooked them up on purpose. Think of them like mental spam. They just pop up without your permission, and they're often the total opposite of what you actually believe or want. Now, this next part is maybe the most important thing you'll hear today. If you've had thoughts like these, it's so easy to feel alone or to worry that something is seriously wrong with you. But guess what? The research tells a completely different story. Check this out. This was a total game changer. A psychologist named Stanley Rachman did a study on a bunch of healthy college students, and he found that pretty much all of them had these kinds of thoughts. This isn't a sign that you're broken. It's just a sign that you're human. And let's be real, the stuff that pops into our heads can be pretty jarring. In that study, students talked about having thoughts of hurting someone they love, or suddenly wanting to shout something inappropriate, or seeing some random bizarre image in their mind. It's like the brain just generates random and often taboo noise. So here's the bottom line. For most people, these thoughts are basically mental hiccups, right? They're weird, they might be a little annoying, but we just kind of brush them off and move on with our day. It's just background static from a super creative and, yeah, complex brain. Okay, but that brings up the big question, right? If literally everyone has these thoughts, when do they cross the line? When do they stop being just a weird, fleeting annoyance and turn into a real problem? Let's break that down, because the answer is fascinating. It has almost nothing to do with the content of the thought itself. It has everything to do with how we react to it. You can really see the difference when you put them side by side. A normal intrusive thought, it's brief, you dismiss it, it's gone. But it morphs into an obsession when we grab onto it and give it way too much attention. We start worrying, what does this thought mean about me? And that worrying causes major anxiety, which in turn makes the thought feel sticky and impossible to shake. And this gets at a classic psychological paradox. It's like this. Whatever you do, do not think about a pink elephant. What are you thinking about right now? Exactly. The more you try to push a thought away, the more it pushes back. Fighting it just gives it more power. And in conditions like obsessive-compulsive disorder, or OCD, this thing turns into a really vicious cycle. So step 1, the intrusive thought pops up. Step 2, it causes huge distress and anxiety. So step 3, the person feels this overwhelming urge to do something, a compulsion, like a ritual, to try and neutralize that anxiety. And step 4, it works. But only for a second. That temporary relief accidentally teaches the brain, whoa, that thought was really dangerous, and this ritual saved us, which just reinforces the whole loop and makes it even stronger the next time around. And it's not just OCD, by the way. Severe, persistent intrusive thoughts are a key feature of a few other conditions, too. With PTSD, for example, the thoughts are often flashbacks or memories of the trauma. And with postpartum depression, they can show up as absolutely terrifying, unwanted thoughts about the baby. Okay, so if fighting the thoughts and pushing them away just makes them stronger, what are you supposed to do? Well, fortunately, there is a much, much healthier way to handle them. So instead of fighting, the research points towards acceptance. Now hold on, that doesn't mean you agree with the thought, not at all. It just means you acknowledge it's there, without judging it.
kind of like noticing a weird-shaped cloud floating by. You see it, you can even label it in your head, oh, there's one of those weird thoughts again, and then you just let it drift on by without grabbing onto it. Over time, doing this starves the thought of the attention it craves to survive.
Now, for anyone who's really struggling to manage this alone, please know there are super effective professional treatments out there. The gold standard for OCD is something called exposure and response prevention, or ERP. That's where you gradually face the feared thought without doing the compulsion, which finally breaks that cycle. There's also cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, which helps you change your entire relationship with these thoughts. And for some severe cases, medication can also be really helpful to dial down the anxiety. And here's a really important thing to understand about treatment. The goal isn't to get rid of intrusive thoughts completely. That's just not possible. Like we said, everybody has them. The real goal is to get to a place where they don't bother you anymore, where they don't cause all that distress, and they go back to being what they are for most people, just a fleeting, weird annoyance you can easily dismiss. And that really brings us to the most powerful takeaway of all, summed up perfectly by Dr. Lee Breyer. The junk mail that shows up in your brain does not define who you are as a person. The key is recognizing that these thoughts aren't secret signals about your true self. They're just noise. They aren't you, and they absolutely do not have to have any power over you.